Hi guys, my name is Christine, and today I'm talking about 3 signs that you are merging with your higher self. So let me just quickly explain to you my perspective on the higher self. So the higher self for me is when you are in alignment basically with your core goals and values, and you are basically have a really deep sense of inner peace about life, about your life, about the circumstances of the world. You don't get so riled up, so angry about different circumstances, and you're basically quite zen, right? And you're living from that place, right? You really are truly living from that place. So what are then the 3 signs then that you are starting to become that person who is in alignment with their higher self? So the first sign that you are merging with your higher self basically is that you're conscious, really starting to become conscious of what actions you do that make you feel good in your soul, right? And what makes you feel bad, what makes you feel off, right? So you're becoming aware basically of what is really good for your soul and what isn't, right? And what actions you are doing that create the different feelings inside of you. So what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad, what makes you feel at peace, what makes you feel uneasy, right? And you're starting to align yourself more, and you're starting to do the actions of someone who is more in line with their inner peace, right? Who is doing things that they feel good about, right? And you feel good about those actions, right? So a good question that I like to ask myself is, what am I about to do? Is that in alignment with my higher self or not? It may not be something you do either. It could be something you say. So is what I'm about to say in alignment with my higher self or my ego self, my lower self, right? So if you're asking yourself those kinds of questions, and if you're aware of those things, right, then you're definitely becoming closer to becoming your higher self, and you're merging with your higher self. Okay? So another sign that you're merging with your higher self is you have an increased sense of inner peace, right? So I've already touched on this a little bit, right? So you have inner peace about your life, your circumstances, you're happy with the way things are going, and even if they're not going exactly the way that you thought that they would, you feel peaceful about it, and you're basically seeing it as, okay, this is just the way things are, right? And it's perfect no matter what, right? I'm on this, and you see it as a journey. You're not getting so frustrated about things. You might be looking at like the world from a different view as well. Sometimes you might think about like politics and like things that are going on in your country, and you have an inner peace about that as well. You see it as, if there's anything, controversial going on in the news, you see it as, this is just human beings being human beings, right? This is just what they do when they're on a lower plane and they're going from their ego, right? People who have inner peace and are working from their higher self do not behave in these ways, right? They don't behave like that. So if you can kind of see that, and you kind of see it as kind of like humorous in a way almost, because you see it as like kind of like children who haven't learnt yet, right? So when you see like these people arguing right, on social media, you can kind of chuckle at it and just see it as like, it's just like watching children, who don't know that there is another way of being, and they don't have to engage in these arguments and stuff like that. And that's how because you're no longer engaging in those kind of arguments, and you're sort of letting it go, and perhaps you're just watching as a bystander and sort of, laughing to yourself at how childish they are, right? But you see it as, but you do so in a loving way. It's not like you're pointing the finger and being like, haha, I'm better than you, because then you're working from the ego. But you kind of see it as just human beings being human beings, and they have yet not reached that spiritual level where they are working from their higher self, you see. So it can be about many different things, but that's kind of like how your perspective on things. And it's the same with your own life, and that's how you look at your own life. You see it, you have much more inner peace about your own life, your own circumstances, because for whatever reason you might be really poor right now, or perhaps the relationships in your life aren't going that well. Perhaps you don't really like the job that you're in. But what the difference is that you don't mind it as much. You have more peace about it. You just sort of see it as, okay, this is just the way things are. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't change these things. You should always actively be trying to change and make a better circumstance for yourself, right? But it's about not getting frustrated while you're still in the mix of things that you don't necessarily want or don't necessarily like. Okay, so you kind of like, you're working from inner peace, even if you're in a place that you don't really, things could be better, right? And usually things could always be better, right? I think we can all agree on that. So you have an increased sense of inner peace. So the next sign is that you're starting to see the bigger picture in life. So you often see this with people that have had near-death experiences. They have all these worries and woes, and then they go through a near-death experience, and then they come back, and they have like the bigger picture sort of idea of life. And they're no longer as worried about the things that used to worry them, right? So if you are starting to feel that way, if you're starting to feel like you are no longer so concerned about the everyday little annoyances, and you're starting to see the bigger picture about life, about the universe, and how, you can really feel that, right? And you really sense that bigger picture sort of mindset, right? Of like, it doesn't really matter too much. All these emotions that I go through, the anxieties, it doesn't matter so much, right? It really doesn't matter that much at all, right? Because things are going to progress, life moves on. One of the most constant things about life is change. So even if you're in a circumstance right now that you're not 100% happy with, right? Know that life is always changing. You may be in these kind of circumstances for weeks or months or even years, but eventually change does come around, right? And change does happen. And sometimes the change can be a big improvement, right? So it's like sort of that you don't worry so much about these things anymore. You don't have these anxieties. You don't worry about stuff like you used to, perhaps when you were younger, when you were a teenager. The opinions of other people don't matter so much anyway, because you're kind of just doing your own thing and you're focusing on what makes you feel in alignment and is nourishing for your soul, essentially, right? And that's where a lot of people who are merging with their higher self feel. They feel like they've got the bigger perspective on life, right? And it's very similar to what people go through when they have a near-death experience, right? They have all these, like I said, they had all these worries and anxieties while they were, that before they had their near-death experience, and then they have their near-death experience, and then they see things in a totally new way, and the things that used to worry them don't worry them as much anymore. Okay, so that's my 3 signs that you are starting to merge with your higher self. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.